out. So the next chapter is Chapter 5, jumping into jQuery and JavaScript syntax. All right. Again, both chapters 5 and 6 are real long chapters. Okay, so as you can see there, ways to add jQuery and JavaScript to your web pages, how to create and manipulate arrays of objects, how to add code logic to JavaScript, and how to implement JavaScript functions for cleaner code. Let me just tell you right now, all right? And I'm going to pass this out after the break, but what we're going to do, one of the instructors, I was talking to her at our in-service, and she said, I'm trying to find it right here. She said, wouldn't it be cool if Blackhawk had their own Uber? All right, and I didn't know if it'd be cool or not, but I thought, well, one thing that would do is I could make an assignment out of that. So this is your first assignment. So BTC has decided to go Uber, but not really. Pretend that BTC has decided to implement their own version of Uber. I was going to call it BTCU, but then I thought, oh my God. Okay, you are a web developer at Acme Website Development and Design. You will be creating a BTC Uber site. For this first assignment, you'll create 5 linked pages. And I've got to change it because I kept it at 5, and for the first year, it's 4. All right. First is a home page. Notice, part of your grade will be based on the ingenuity and content you put on this page. I don't want it filled with lorem ipsum text. Oh, but Jeff, I found this new lorem ipsum. It does Star Wars stuff. Good. Make your own pages at home and do whatever the hell you want to do with them. All right. Second, an about page. It should be, let's say, factually based. All right. Third, you're going to do a sign-up form. And actually, you're going to do 3 sign-up forms. It's going to be the same exact form. At a minimum, this is the stuff you have to have on it. All right. And then the first one, you are going to, all fields are required, and I've got all the other stuff that's in here. Okay. But the first one, you are going to validate using only HTML5. The whole thing. The second one, you're going to validate it using only JavaScript. And the third one, you're going to validate it using only the jQuery validation plugin. All right? And for each form, as it says, if any of the checks fail, so if there was a required field and you left it off, show an error message off to the side, all right, that's in bold and is red. Then, because I know how much a lot of you in here loved PHP last year, what you're going to do with each one of those is when you click the submit button, it's going to go off and it's going to link to a PHP file called confirmation.php. In that file, that should only be accessible if the client-side stuff worked, you're going to build a form letter. And I even gave you the letter. All right, you're going to auto-generate a date. You're going to put the person's first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip. Those are all things that you've retrieved from the HTML file. All right? And then you'll say attention. So everywhere in here where I put these placeholders, first name, last name, etc., I want it to look somewhat like this. If you don't think my format looks really good, but you put in the same information, that's fine. All right? But the reason I'm telling you that is in these 2 chapters, they do talk about JavaScript. All right? This one is more JavaScript oriented. In fact, this one's both. And then chapter 6 really is on JavaScript. But a lot of the stuff that's in there, I'm literally going to spend a minute on. It says this is a variable. This is a for loop. This is a while loop. You should not need review on any of that stuff. And if you do, you can go back and take a look at it in the book. All right. I think we talked about this. If I didn't, then hopefully Jim talked to you about this last semester. But, the magic is all under jquery.com. You should all understand, too, when you go down to jquery.com, let's see. I always forget where it is. What's a CDN?
Content Delivery Network or something like that?
That's what it is. Well, it's where on the internet you want to go to find something. So somewhere in here is the jQuery Content Delivery Network. And what it says is rather than you having to go and grab jQuery, save it to your computer, All right, save the file to your computer. And if you are going to do that, you should only use the minified one. All right, and then adding it to all your scripts. What you can do instead is you can use the content delivery network. I think it may be here. And you can just link to it that way. So for example, you can put in this right here. The advantage of using a CDN is you have less page bloat because you're not literally adding the stuff to your page. The other thing too is there's a good chance is if the user, the person using your site is a regular internet user, they may have already downloaded without them knowing it and cached a copy of Jquery. So it'll be faster for them. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is, as somebody just said, oh, it's the internet. Yeah, and if you don't have internet, you know, if you're someplace where you don't have internet capability, you're going to be host.
Or even decent speed. I was talking to
Yeah.
a new student yesterday that connection isn't quite as bad as dial-up with the technology they have to use, but
Yeah.
it's close.
I believe it. All right. So I don't know why the author put it in like this, but they did. Okay. So the line that you see up on top there, that's loading Jquery from a CDN. That particular CDN is from Jquery's site itself. The one thing you have to watch out for is sometimes if you grab the CDN from different places, because it's all over the place, all right? What some of them do is they leave out the HTTP colon, and it's just // and it's done because what I've read, oh no, the system knows that it's HTTP by default, and it puts that in. No, it doesn't always. Sometimes you get an error message if you put that up. All right, so if you do, or if nothing's coming up, go back and take a look and make sure that happens. Always put your Jquery before you put any JavaScript in. So in here, what we're just saying, what this will end up doing is this will end up printing out the version of Jquery that's currently being used. All right. And if you don't know what the other stuff means, I mean, if you say, you know what, I took that class last semester and I have absolutely no idea what this means, then I feel really bad. I feel really bad that you took that class last semester. Okay? Or whenever the heck you took it. All right. So they show how to build this in here, and they talk a little Jquery to you and at you. One of the advantages of using either JavaScript or Jquery, and again, Jquery is JavaScript, is the fact that you can access the DOM with it. What's the DOM? All right. It's the document object model. All right. And remember this? Get element by ID. Anything that you put on a web page that's got its own ID on it, you can now grab with get element by ID. And most people do it like this. They use the get element by ID, they throw it into a variable, and then they manipulate the variable. All right? On the other hand, another way that you can do that is, let's say I wanted to grab, as the example shows here, every paragraph. There's even easier ways to do it, but just so you see this. All right? That's get elements. So if it's a single element by ID and it's elements by tag name. And it drives people nuts too, because people are always used to typing in ID with a capital D. You do that, it won't work. Now, again, as opposed to doing this, most people do it like this. So I'm asking you this question right now. Those of you who had the 152, 167 Ajax and JavaScript website development class, did you go over stuff like this? Yes? Okay, good. Because you should understand what that means, because that's Jquery in about its simplest format. Because this is a shortcut for the Jquery. It's just an alias. And then what we're saying is the selector we want to use are all paragraphs, and we want to be able to add CSS to all paragraphs. What CSS? We want to change the font weight of every paragraph. All right, so that's the attribute, and the value of that attribute is going to be bold. That's something that should make sense to everybody in here. All right? And they go through an example of it. Kind of a weird example, to be honest with you, but whatever. This is what I mentioned before. JavaScript, they say, learn how to create a variable. One thing I don't like about this author is he's actually wrong. That is not true. To define a variable in JavaScript, you must use the var keyword. No, you can do it without var. You should use var. All right, but to say must implies that if you don't, your stuff won't work. That isn't true. All right, that's just like 99 times out of 100, if you leave a semicolon off the end of a line, it'll still work. There's only a few occasions where that won't work. All right, you know that JavaScript has strings, which can be in either single or double quotes. It has numbers, one number type that basically handles everything. Booleans for true, false. It has arrays. All right, and you can also create associative arrays in JavaScript. True or false, the elements in a JavaScript array must be of the same type. True or false? Well, I got them both. How many people think true? How many people think false? It's false. You can, in a JavaScript array, you can put elements of any type in there. All right? And that's how you would create a regular numerically indexed array. And that's how you would create an associative array, where again, it's key, value, key, value, key, value type of thing. I guess that's actually key, 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 value, value, value. All right. The operators, there shouldn't be anything here that you know, everybody here should know those. And everybody here should know those. Like I said, none of that stuff is new. All right. Then we've got the operators. This is one of the languages that does support the triple equal sign. And what's the difference between triple equal and double equal? Not reading it off of there, but what's the difference in English?
The triple means it's identical, both value and
Well, the whatever is what's important because both value and type. All right? Because if you use a double equal and you compare 37 with double quote 37 double quote, it'll say they're equal if you use two equal signs. All right? But if you use three, it will not. All right? And there's also an exclamation point double equal then too. All right. We've got our old friends and, or, and not. Anybody remember? If you have not used parentheses, so if you've used no parentheses, and you've got a series of ands and ors and nots, what's the order of precedence? Which goes first always? Which goes first always? No, you can't answer.
I know, that's why I only raised my hand.
Not, because not is the most restrictive. It is changing true to false or false to true.
It also only works on the one element, the other one's required.
Yes, it is a unary operator, where the other two are binary. Now, Zane, you answered a little early. What's the second one? And, then or. So it goes from most to least restrictive. Remember that in JavaScript, you do need the parentheses around your Boolean condition. If it's just one line, it's not mandatory that you put the curly braces in. All right. So they've got some stuff that basically it says what time of the day it is and says good morning, good day, or good night to you. While loops, do while loops, and for loops. I think we all know what these are. Break, to break you out of a loop at any time. Continue, to stop the current iteration of the loop and go back to the top again. They do a really good job here on this interrupting loops, probably better than the way I typically explain it. If you take a look, that is on, I don't know what page it's on. Page 163 in the book. And I skipped over it, but they also explain the if in there and the switch in there. Okay? But again, you've had these in multiple languages now. This is kind of a cool program that they put in here. When you look at this, what do they have? Well, they're setting up in here, all right, objects. And this thing is super data. So Superman has one enemy, Batman has two enemies, Spider-Man has three enemies, Thor has two enemies. All right, so they set all that stuff up, and then they go through and they used 2 different for loops, a for within a for. Because what you want to do is you want to say, here are all Superman's enemies, and show them. Then here are all Batman's enemies, and then show them. Here are all Spider-Man's enemies, then show them. Here are all Thor's enemies, and show them. So you get this. Now, they didn't format it very well, but the idea is you can see when you look through that. You could have also done this using regular for loops, but remember that in JavaScript rather, if you can use just a for loop like this with an in statement, and it'll actually run faster, but that you can't do that if you are going to be manipulating the values in the array. Variable scope, we looked at this a little bit last time. What kind of variable is that right there? Global. What kind of variable is that right there? Local. All right, just keep that in mind, you should be fine. Just like we learned in Java, JavaScript also allows you to do try-catch blocks. All right, and they show an example in here. Try this. If it turns out that it's a square root program, and if you left it blank, it'll bring up a message that says can't square root nothing. All right? If you put in something that's non-numeric, can't square root strings. If you put in a negative number, you can't do a square root of imaginary numbers. So you can kind of see how that works right there. That's throwing your own exception. And if you remember from what I talked about last semester, you throw exceptions. Java and JavaScript throws exceptions. All right? You can use the finally clause if you need to, want to, whatever. All right? That's pretty much it for that chapter. Now, I think we're going to take the break early, but when we come back, we'll talk about understanding and using JavaScript objects. I'm asking for a show of hands out of the people who are in here right now. How many of you would like a hard copy of the programming assignment? I'll print them out. All right? I'll just print out about 10 of them, and I'll leave them back there. If you want them, great. If you don't, that's fine also. So it is 10:46. Let's come back at 11 o'clock, please.